This is Pick One, Pack One, everything you need to get your draft started right. I'm one of your hosts, Gavin McKay. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Paul J. Camo. How you doing, Paul?
Gavin, I'm doing great. What's going on with you?
It's been a long time. I think
It has.
it's been, a little bit of time here. We're just finishing up summer season and getting ready to swing into a new set.
Yeah, we were lost in the void for a while there, but now we're
At
back.
the edge of eternities, right? But now we're
Yeah.
back, and we're going to talk about some heroes today, some villains, maybe some villains in real life, possibly, but also maybe some fake villains.
Yes.
And we'll talk a lot about that today.
Yes, and we're going to talk about some villains of one universe and some villains of another universe. It's going to be interesting.
So we're of course talking about the new set that is coming out here in Magic the Gathering's limited formats, Spider-Man. This is a new set that's coming out, and we're here to do your pre-release primer and talk to you a little bit about the cards, the card design, and things that maybe you should watch out for. Take it away, Paul.
So we're gonna definitely talk about the 5 archetypes that are in the set. We're gonna talk a little bit about some specific cards. We're mainly gonna focus on talking about pick 2 draft, how it's gonna work, how that's gonna affect how you're gonna make draft decisions, because it's gonna be very different than what you're used to with a normal draft. So, Gavin, in order to talk about how we're going to approach drafting Spider-Man, because it's a brand new way to draft, as they say in the article, introducing Pick 2 Draft, a new way to play. Limited players
Brand
even used to
spanking new.
sit down in a pod of 8, and now we're going to sit down in a pod of 4.
Indeed. Yeah, 4 players.
Yeah. So instead of picking 1 card from a pack and passing it, now we're going to pick 2 from a pack. Anybody who's drafted Commander Legends, they're probably going to be familiar with that. Anybody who's drafted Double Masters, they're going to have done that for their first pick of each pack, not for any subsequent picks.
Yep. It's not like Wizards hasn't tweaked the formula before. I mean, this is certainly something that's maybe, I don't want to say it's been in the works, but one thing that I really actually like about this format is that you can play it with 4 people. I mean, it does make things a little bit more accessible, so you don't have to wait for a pot of 8. And if you have a pot of 9, good luck to whoever gets the buy. Having a pot of 4, I mean, typically, if you're thinking about the way that Magic is typically played, when we go to the shop, Paul, on Friday nights, there's a huge collection of people that are there to play limited, but there's an even bigger collection, I would say, they're playing Commander. And what's Commander, right? It's 4 players, right, in a pod.
Typically, yeah.
Typically. I mean, technically you have more and you can have less, but typically it's 4 players. And I think, it makes it more accessible so that you can always fire a draft. You can usually get 4 people together. A lot harder to get 8 people together than it is to get 4 people together. But at the same time,
we know all about that on our Discord channel,
that's right,
trying to herd 8 adults into the same location
8 adults
at the same time to do a draft.
It's difficult. Everybody's got responsibilities. Yeah. So,
and
I mean,
Wizards even calls that out in the article here. They say, hey, you probably usually have a group that you play Commander with, and pick 2 draft is a great way to it's a great way to mix up your game night and do something different. Play a little limited if maybe you've never played limited before. If you're new to limited and you're discovering limited because of the Spider-Man set, welcome. We're glad you're here. Limited is fantastic. We hope you'll play more limited with us.
Honestly, I think that this is a pretty big upside to just a regular draft format. And the reason is, just having more availability and more openness. Again, will it make the games and the picking, though? How is that going to work? So let's go over it together.
Yeah. Let's talk about these archetypes and how this draft is going to work. So we're going to be picking 2 out of each pack and passing the way we would normally go. So you're going to open your booster pack. You're going to go through the cards. You're going to pick the 2 cards you're most excited for from your pack, set those aside, and you're going to pass the pack. So left, right, left, pick 2 each time. It's going to go very fast because there's only 4 players. You're picking 2. You're going to zip through that pack, and then you're going to build a 40-card deck.
One thing I wanted to point out is that this set originally was supposed to be like 100 cards, like we said in there's an article, but basically, because this is only supposed to have rares, mythics, and uncommons in it, it wasn't ever supposed to have commons in it. I feel like you may be able to just take your rare or multiple rares that are in your pack, and that would be your automatic pick one, pack one. I don't want to say it takes the decision making out of it, but when you have two choices as your first selection instead of one, can you imagine if you were fantasy football drafting and you got to pick two players at the start? I mean, that would give you such a huge advantage. I hope it doesn't turn into just one person ends up with the most busted deck of all time and everybody else gets the scraps. But
But
I could
think of
definitely
it a
see
different way though, Gavin. Like you're going to be able to open your picks and you're going to be able to take your star quarterback and a kicker.
that. Well, I don't know if you'd take a kicker in the first round, but yeah,
You
running
might
back for sure.
in Spider-Man draft, you might take
You
that
might want a kicker.
fixing.
That's true.
You might take the bomb and the less exciting rare that you're probably not even going to play anyways cuz it's not that great. You might
Hmm.
set that aside and take the fixing or take the removal spell. There is a banishing light effect in this format that we'll call out more directly when we get there. So this does open up some possibilities for draft.
One
So
thing I can
keep that
say
in
for
mind.
certain though is it makes money drafting a lot easier.
Absolutely. If you open the money, you just windmill slam the money. There's
That's right.
no doubts. There's no
When I say money drafting, you are if you're new to drafting, obviously you always have your choice in paper magic of whatever card you want in the pack. And sometimes there's a card in the pack that maybe is not necessarily going to go into your deck, but is just worth some money and may have paid for your draft by selecting it. At some point, you got to make a financial decision. Am I going to make my deck X much better? I mean, if you're in an RCQ or you're in a very tight draft pod or you're in a competitive environment, you may just forego that because at that point, it's not about that. But when you're just drafting for fun and everybody's kind of just opening stuff up and you get past something that's maybe worth at least a few dollars, you can make a financial decision, as I'll call it.
You always take the foil Tarmogoyf, Gavin. Always take the foil Tarmogoyf.
Or the end stone, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, so let's talk about these archetypes a little bit because there's some things that we've seen before and other ones that we maybe have seen a little bit less.
Yeah. The big thing to note first is there's only 5 archetypes, which is different normally in a typical Magic limited environment. There's 10, one for each 2-color pair that exists. We've got all allied color pairs here, no enemy color pairs here. So the first one, Gavin, is modified. Tell us about Azorius modified or blue-white modified.
So modified is basically all the cards that either care about auras, enchantments, equipment, counters, anything that has any of those things on it is considered a modified permanent. So it's going to be an archetype that really relies heavily on augmenting your creatures with either auras to supplement. Think about them like gadgets, from Spider-Man. If you've got your web slingers, you've got your Doc Ock tentacle arms, you've got all the cool. I guess Tony Stark is more known for his gadgets than Spider-Man is, but the web slingers are pretty iconic too.
Yeah, suiting them up.
So you want to talk about the mirror?
Yeah. So the Demir or blue black archetype is villains and conniving, which connive is a mechanic that we've seen before, originally back in Streets of New Capenna, that when you connive are looking at the correct me if I'm wrong, Gavin, it's look at the top card. What's the official
Yes. Yep. So I believe you draw the top card of your library, and then you discard a card. Here, I'll pull up an example.
Yeah, you
All
draw
right,
and then
connive.
discard.
You draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature.
Yep. So it's
So
been a
yeah,
minute since
connive,
we've seen
connive.
that.
Well, my favorite card that has connive on it is Ledger Shredder. Ledger
Ledger
Shredder,
Shredder.
that's the
Yep.
one.
That's
Ledger Shredder is
fantastic.
a classic card. If you cast whenever any player casts their second spell, you connive. So that thing can get big in a hurry in a commander game for sure.
And it's very important for you to keep track of the triggers on that. So don't forget when
Yes.
your
Yep.
opponent plays their second spell that you're triggering your thing because they're not going to remind you.
That's just for Ledger Shredder though. That's not for connive. Connive can happen on, any of these other instances here, whether
Yes.
it's on an attack or
Yes. But the
when it
Ledger
deals
Shredder
combat damage.
connives when the second spell is cast.
Right. Exactly. So the next one that we have, this next archetype we have is Rakdos or red black, which is Mayhem. So Mayhem is a discard effect. So it's a little bit similar to Madness, if you
It's
guys know what that is.
madness, but it's
Madness
not.
is from Innistrad, and it means whenever you discard a card with Madness, you exile it first, and then you can choose to play it for its Madness cost, which is usually a reduced cost on the card. But that's only when you discard that card at that time. You have that opportunity. For example, if you're discarding due to having too many cards in your hand, and that's an opportunity for Madness. Whereas Mayhem is a little bit different. Mayhem is you discard this card for Mayhem, and then if you discarded the card that turn, you can play the card for its Mayhem cost. So
Yeah.
it doesn't need to
Mayhem
happen
doesn't
right
change the
away.
timing
Doesn't
restrictions.
change the time. Exactly.
Timing restrictions still apply, whereas Madness changes the timing restriction and says you can cast this right now.
Yeah.
Or not.
So Mayhem says you can cast this card from your graveyard for its Mayhem cost if you discarded it this turn. So this is a sorcery, so you have to still do it at sorcery speed. The other thing that it doesn't do is if you discard due to hand size, that's in your cleanup step. So
yep.
You
doesn't
can't
change timing restrictions.
Doesn't change the timing, and so you didn't discard it this turn. Unless, is there a way you could play an instant for its Mayhem cost if you discard it to hand size? I don't think so, right? Because that would be still bad timing.
I believe you would still get to resolve that spell. There would still be
Okay.
a timing window to resolve that, but we'd have to confirm
Because it's
that. We'd have to by checking either with a judge or checking the comprehensive rules on how
right.
the cleanup step and how Madness works.
Because this swarm being of bees has flash, and it has a Mayhem cost of black. I think technically you could discard this in your cleanup step and cast it for 1 black mana. If I'm correct. I also just like the flavor text on this. If you see the flavor text on this, evil never dies, it just becomes bees.
I like that. I like that. Before we go away, Gavin, I want to mention one thing. We talked about this Madness being from Innistrad, and one of the Innistrad sets was the last time we saw this effect. But Madness actually goes all the way back to Odyssey block in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Torment, I believe, was the set we first saw it in.
That's crazy. That's amazing. Well, thank you for the history lesson there. You want to move on to the next?
Always here to help. Always here to help. So what are the other archetypes that we're looking at?
So Gruul, which is red and green.
Before.
Yeah, I think this one's a little more familiar. This one is called Large Spells, and that's not large as in the creatures are large. They are, but they care about the mana value of the spell being 4 or greater. So you really want to be using your mana efficiently so that you can cast your big spells on turn 4. You're not missing any land drops. Maybe you're playing a mana dork or two, and you're able to get those large spells out. I remember that the large spell archetype from what was the last set that had a four matters?
Was it Aether Drift?
Might have been Aether Drift that had a four or greater. I mean, it just felt like you could chain them together. That you would just go, 4 mana value into 5 mana value into 6 mana value, and your opponents couldn't really do anything about it because once you get to that level of spell, once you get to that higher tier, the spells become more and more impactful
and getting added value out of it because of
the triggers as well. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
I felt like as soon as my opponent got to that mana threshold, there wasn't much that I could do to stop them. So maybe that'll be the case here. I don't know. We'll have to find out when we see it in person. Do you want to take this last one, Paul? I think this is the only new mechanic that we've seen.
Yeah, this is web slinging, which is in Selesnya or green and white. And this web slinging, if you pull a card up for us to read the Oracle text.
By the way, this is not called web slinging in the Omen Paths. It's called in web. So web slinging is you may cast this spell for its web slinging cost if you also return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand.
Yep. So again, like Mayhem, this is not changing timing restrictions. So you're still casting this in your main phase when you have priority, unless the spell has flash. But you do have a discount for casting these web slingings of returning a tapped creature to hand. So this might feel a bit like a mechanic some of our Pauper players might have seen before, ninjutsu.
Similar, right?
Similar. Ninjutsu, though, a ninjutsu was not a casting.
It
Ninjutsu
was
was
like,
an activated ability.
oh, it was, it's right.
So
Right.
yeah, so it
So
gets
it was
dodges counter spells, whereas this won't. Ninjutsu is an
right.
activated ability that let you return an unblocked attacker to owner's hand and put the ninjutsu creature onto the table. All of our Neon Dynasty limited players are going to remember this. Moon Circuit Hacker was a heck of a drug in that format and in
Yep.
Pauper.
Yep. But this one just cares about any tapped creature. So
Yes.
it doesn't care how you get it tapped. If your opponent taps it down, if you attack with it, if you've got your own tap ability, if there's maybe a vehicle.
Yep.
I
If
don't
you're
think this set has any
crewing, if you're
vehicles.
stationing, if you're paying a convoke cost, there are
Yeah.
lots of ways to tap creatures that don't involve attacking. So
Yeah. And
web slinging is going to help you make that happen.
typically the web slinging cost is reduced, but in some cases it is more expensive. Like this one, Spider-Man Heroic Horde has web slinging 6. So if they were cast using web slinging, you gain 3 life and create 2/1 spider creature tokens with reach. So that's not a bad rate for 6.
No,
You
not at
get
all. And it's cool that we're
3
seeing
bodies.
it both as a cost reducer on certain cards and as kicker, for lack of better terms, on other cards. Because
Yeah,
hashtag everything is kicker,
everything is kicker, more or
unless it's
less.
horsemanship.
And then it's trample. No,
Yes.
then it's horsemanship, right? Okay, so those are the archetypes.
Are there
We
any
just wanted to call out
particular
the fact.
cards that you want to call out?
Well, we already talked a little bit about spiders, mans. The question is, which one? One thing that I've noticed throughout this set is there are a lot of Spider-Men. So make sure that when you're playing in person, I believe there are 44 cards that either have the words Spider-Man, Spider-Men, the spider, some sort of arachnid person in the description of the name of the text of the card. So make sure when you're targeting something or when you're talking about a particular card, make sure you're talking about the right one, because if you just say Spider-Man, it could be a lot. I blow up your Spider-Man with this kill spell or something. That could be pretty ambiguous in this
Yeah,
set. So make sure you're pointing it out. Yes.
communicate
Communicate
clearly with your
clearly.
opponent about which spider person you
Spider
are
person.
interacting with during
Yeah,
your games at pre-release so that
that's
everyone
right.
is happy and everyone enjoys the game.
The other thing I just wanted to touch on is that there are a lot of multicolored cards in this set. There are 43 cards that are from the Spider-Man set. This is not including the special guest section. I'm sure there are more in the special guest section, but just in the main set, there are 43 cards that are multicolored or have some sort of multicolor um, attachment to them. There's these transform cards. There's Peter Parker, Norman Osborn, Eddie Brock, Gwen Stacy, Miles Morales. They all have transform costs. So they all do different things, and there are 3-color transform costs. So fixing is probably going to be at a premium with this set. We can talk about that a little bit as well, but basically be on the lookout for these multicolored signpost cards. There are a lot of them. They're in all of these 5 guilds essentially. So just be on the lookout for those, and they should synergize pretty well with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
really,
If you
if they
stay
are,
in your archetype, all of the
yeah,
cards that you draft should synergize well with each other. But since there
yes,
are a decent amount of mana fixing lands in this set, Gavin, and there are
yeah,
cards that have 3-color activated abilities to transform them, it's gonna behoove players to play 3 and 4 colors. You're gonna want to
absolutely,
consider splashing where possible. So you might take things that are not in your archetype but are just raw powerful cards, and that'll be good,
yeah. There's a few different lands. Again, there's only 5 dual lands. They're all in the guild colors, but they all have this 4 and tap surveil ability. So this one, the Ominous Asylum, taps for Rakdos mana, enters tapped, but has the 4 and tap to surveil 1. It's just nice to have that utility on these lands here, and they're all the same ability. But there are 2 3-color lands. There
Gavin,
is the
those dual lands, before you go too far, people might
yeah.
recognize those because these are the allied color versions of
Mhm.
lands we saw back in Strixhaven Limited.
Strixhaven.
So Strixhaven
Yeah,
gave us the enemy colors. We're getting the allied colors now, which is very
that's
cool,
good.
completing the
Yeah,
cycle.
definitely. So we've got the Oscorp Industries, which is a tricolor land. It also has Mayhem, which is pretty cool. So basically, if you discard this at any point during your turn, let's say you want to pitch a land because you know, you don't want to, basically, you want to get some value, you can basically play it from your graveyard if you discard it, if you lose 2 life. So that's a really cool design there. I think that's pretty amazing. And then there's
That
this other
card's
one, which
secretly
is
busted.
yeah, it's very good. It's very good. I mean, if you pitch it, you can cast it for its mayhem cost, which is awesome. Urban Retreat as well enters tapped, and it also has an activated ability of 2. You don't have to tap it, by the way. It's just an activated ability of 2. Return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. Put this card from your hand onto the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So
It's a
it
land with web
itself
slinging.
has yes, or and web.
Yes.
I don't know what the advantage to I mean, other than buying back an enters the battlefield trigger, which could definitely be possible, or saving your
Which would
creature.
be sweet.
Well, it wouldn't save it from removal because it's sorcery speed. But if you wanted to buy back one of your creatures and redo its enters the battlefield trigger, I can definitely see this as a way of doing that, as well as slightly ramping you. It's going to get you that extra land on the battlefield for the next turn. Those are the lands. I mean, we have another Evolving Wilds, which is called Vibrant Cityscape. So that's just your basic tap, search your library for basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. And so it's going to be really important to get those lands. I think in some of these first picks, I think that fixing is going to be at a premium. These are all, I believe, they're uncommons, right? Or no, they're commons.
The duels
So
are common. There's
the
some
duals are commons,
rares.
but some of these are rares or uncommons. The Daily Bugle is an uncommon. Urban Retreat is a rare. Oscorp is a rare. Multiversal Passage as well is a rare. As this land enters, choose a basic land type, then you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters tapped. The land is the chosen type. So this is basically a universal, like whatever color land you want it to be, and it has the option to come in untapped. So a universal pain land, basically.
Yeah.
It doesn't tap
And the
for
most
multiple
hilarious thing
colors,
you
just
could do
one
would be
color.
to
But
choose the type waste.
yeah, that would be pretty funny. Then you would not, you'd
You would
have
no longer be fixing yourself, but you
a
would be
shock
sending a
waste.
message.
Yeah, if you choose waste, you can definitely send a message to your opponent that you don't care too much about the fixing. Okay, any other cards or anything else you wanted to bring to people's attention about this set, Paul? I think it's going to be explosive. One thing that I was really struggling with this set is we always go back and we compare to previous sets, like where this kind of fits in. If we go back to Ether Drift, we could compare it directly to other sets that had a lot of vehicles in it, like Kaladesh, or Outlaws of Thunder Junction that had saddling. If we go to Tarkir Dragonstorm, you can directly compare it to Tarkir, Khans of Tarkir. There's a lot of backwards inspiration that you can kind of glean from some of these sets. I'm not really getting any of the previous sets. I'm not getting a ton of influence from a previous set because it's not set on a particular plane that we've been to before. Some of the mechanics are from various different sets throughout the multiverse. I mean, it just kind of feels like it's got a little bit from everything, and that means that it doesn't have a huge core identity for me,
Well, Gavin,
which,
I think
you
I
know,
think what we see here is that we see a massive number of legends. So that makes me think of Lord of the Rings. Legendaries mattered in that set. Having good ones that are in your archetype was super important. So I think that's going to be a thing, is having all
mm,
the right pieces of the puzzle put together to do the thing you want to do. There's also OG
wow.
Dominaria from
80
back in the
cards are
day
legendary
had
in
a
this set.
Legends Matter and had a lot of legends in it. You could look at Dominaria United more recently as something that had good legends, particularly cool uncommon legends to build around. I think that's going to be the spice there, is going to be what legendary creatures have you opened? How are they fitting into the deck and what you're trying to do? And be cautious with the uncommon ones and don't draft too many of them that are the same, which is going to be something that's going to come up in a set this small, because you're not going to be able to play multiples of them onto the battlefield at the same time. So there's a lot of draft decisions that are going to be made based on rarity and duplicates and things of that nature, possibly, that might not be something that would come up in a typical set where you have more players and more cards in the set. So it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that plays out.
Honestly, there are 80 legendary permanents in this set.
That's a lot in a
Out
set of
of
100
out
and
of
something cards.
100 out of 200 and something cards, 80 of them, probably about a little more than a third, I would say.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy. Actually,
that's
that's wait,
that's
is
close
that
to
more than
half.
half?
That's close
Close
to
to half.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
would say like 40%.
that's a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays. I'm excited about that. I am cautiously optimistic about this set. I am going to be playing a decent amount of this set in limited. I'm going to do some pre-releasing, and there's a couple of local RCQs I'm going to be going to play this set in sealed. I don't know how many chances I'm going to get to draft this, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
I think that with the relative size of the set and the relative number of legendaries, you may run into a situation where you have multiple legendaries sitting in your hand that you can't deploy or don't want to deploy because of the legend rule. I thought that that might be the case with Final Fantasy, just because of the number of legendaries in that set as well. But turns out not to be the case. That didn't really end up being as much of a deal. But I think in this set, with the relative size of it, I feel like that may actually be a pretty sizable disadvantage. I don't know.
Well, that may
Only
encourage
time
you
will tell.
to make different, yeah, and that may encourage you to make different draft choices. Maybe you don't want your fourth copy of a legendary uncommon. Maybe you're gonna
Or
take something
Anti-Venom, the
else.
horrifying healer.
Well, I mean, you're gonna pick one, pack one anti-venom horrifying healer, and you're gonna draft mono white, and you're gonna get people with it. I think
I
that's just
mean,
the
if
thing
you
you're
can
gonna do.
draft mono white in this set, more power to you. There are only 24 white cards, so I don't know how you're going to get away with that.
You're gonna do your best, or you're
Yeah,
gonna play
for sure.
white splashing another color, and you're gonna be base white splashing something.
I mean, five white pips is pretty.
It's hefty. It's
That's
hefty.
that's a hefty mana requirement.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk at all about the universes beyond, not universes beyond, the special guest cards. These are the special guest cards here. There's a Path to Exile in there, which is cool. Leyline Binding, I think, might be surprisingly good in this format with the amount of fixing and multicolor stuff that there is.
The dual
Counterspell,
lands
always
don't have
good.
basic land types, though, so bear that in mind.
Oh, that is a good point. That is a good point. Yeah. So scratch that. Reprieve, always a good card. That's classic. Return target spell to its owner's hand and draw a card. Basically, like, completely time walks your opponent for a turn if it's early on in the game.
Yep. Actual factual counter spell over there.
Yeah. A little bit memey. There is the Feed the Swarm, which is a good one. Reanimate proper.
Reanimate is going to be sweet.
There's a, let's see here, Opposition Agent. That one's more relevant in Commander, I believe, than in Limited, but it still could be decent in Limited if your opponent's like cracking, the, what's it called? I've already forgotten the name of the land.
The Mayhem land.
The Evolving Wilds. No,
Evolving
well,
Wilds.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Evolving Wilds, if you're searching your library for something. Goblin Bombardment is always a good card, I think, in Limited.
That's a build
Shock is
around win
good.
condition. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Shock is good. Unexpected Windfall seems like it could be really good here. Heroic Intervention, just a really good protection spell. Parallel Lives, I think, is more of a money card than it is a limited draft playable card.
Last
But
but not least,
Terminate as
Terminate.
well is good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what I'm seeing is either money cards, pick one tier removal spells, money
Yeah.
cards, or just solid game ending type things.
I mean, Arachnogenesis also seems like it could be pretty good in limited.
Yeah.
Although in this set, maybe not, because the creatures that are damaging you are probably going to be spiders.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Although if you
Well, I mean,
create a bunch of spiders from their attackers and make your blocks properly, maybe you're preventing damage.
we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Skithirex is back as well, so just keep an eye out for that. That's a really sick art.
That
That's
is
pretty
awesome.
awesome.
And poisoning somebody out in this would feel sweet if you get a chance to do that.
They really would.
Excuse
I think we saw Mystic Confluence in Final Fantasy as well, but that's
Okay.
also a very good one.
Shout out Mindbreak Trap hiding in there. That's a reprint people have been excited for
Itching
a
for.
while.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah.
last reprint was from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, actually, reprinted My Break Trap because it had
Yep,
the plot mechanic.
that was there. Technically, it was in Mystery Booster 2, but you weren't seeing that in
Mm.
any large quantities with 3,000
Mhm.
something cards in that format. So
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Okay. Well, so that's the bonus sheet, so to speak. Keep your eyes out for the hot dog cart, the glizzy cart. I will be trying to collect as many hot dog food tokens as I possibly can
for
because
sure.
I love hot dogs. That's a fun fact about me. I will never say no to a hot dog. I really just,
Favorite food?
whether it's Chicago style or, literally any type of hot dog. You put chili on it, you put ketchup, mustard, relish, pickles, the works, onions.
Right on.
I mean, I can always dig a dog.
I think I'd say I'm more of a pizza guy than a hot dog person.
If I
But
wasn't lactose
I'm also
intolerant,
a vegan, and vegan hot dogs are pretty boring, at least in my
yeah,
opinion.
I feel like that's a gap in the market that we need to solve for sure.
Now let's move on and let's take a step back for a moment, and we're gonna do some hot takes on Spider-Man, cause
Yeah,
the
because
set that's
Spider-Man, this has been a long time in development, and we really wanted to just talk a little bit about what this set means for Magic as a whole and how everything is going to kind of shake out when it comes to how the set feels.
yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think that setting aside the limited format, which seems interesting, there's bigger picture implications for Spider-Man. And maybe we're gonna get up on a soapbox a little bit. Apologies. Feel free if you just want the primer and that's all you're here for to cut out now and head to your pre-release. But I'm gonna shake my fist at a cloud now. Old man yell at cloud, not the Final Fantasy character. Kind of speak my mind for a minute. So indulge me
Absolutely.
if you. I'm gonna stand on my soapbox for a few, and we're gonna have a conversation about this set that I would argue should not have been possibly. And it may be a hot take for some, maybe not for others. Basically, back in, if we set our Wayback Machine to 2 years ago, when the set was announced back in the 2023, Wizards did an announcement, Wizards Marvel collaboration announcement. Um,
So they announced this, and that was kind of the turning point, right? They
Yeah,
were
so they made the announcement
collaborating.
October 23rd, 2023. Wizards is going to collaborate and they're going to do some stuff together. So, assuming that Wizards typically works on a 2-year timeline, so they're 2 years in advance. Whatever they're working on at the time of our recording right now, this episode, it's September 9th, 2025. Whatever they're working on right now, we're not going to see until the fall of 2027, you know? So if they make this announcement in 2023, the chances are pretty good that they've started working on something because they've finalized the deal and they're announcing it to hype it up. And that leads us to the kind of swinging into design article talking about the set. So, after we get the announcement that Marvel is going to be coming in 2023, fast forward to October 2024, the release calendar for this year, 2025, see, boom, Final Fantasy, Marvel Spider-Man, and an unannounced Universes Beyond set that we all now know living in the future is Avatar The Last Airbender. So we've got 3 Universes Beyond sets that are now coming out. And this announcement that they are no longer going to be straight to modern sets. These sets are all going to go direct into standard. They're going to be in every format. They're going to be in standard. They're going to be in Pioneer, etc. They're not just going to be in Commander, Modern, Legacy, Vintage. You know, I don't want to say the formats nobody cares about, but the formats nobody cares about.
The
At
old heads,
here,
you know?
at least here in Limited World, you know, we play those direct to modern formats when they are draftable formats. But several years ago, for those who only play Limited who might not be aware, Wizards also put out a direct-to-modern set called Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed used what was called a Beyond booster. It was a mini booster that was not meant to be a draftable product. Long story short, it flopped. Kind of like the March of the Machines Aftermath mini set that was also not a draftable product and had almost no cards in it, and that also flopped. And so
a short aside about the Assassin's Creed, my friends and I saw that it came out, and we actually did go to the store and tried to buy some packs and actually tried to like force a boost draft with them, like just try and force something, you know, just opening packs and passing them and seeing if we could make a deck out of it. It wasn't meant to be so it didn't really work. We ended up having to supplement it with a couple of packs of, I think, what was out at the time, which was maybe Outlaws of Thunder Junction or possibly Duskmorn at that time might have been out. So we ended up having to, kind of supplement what we were doing to play with the Assassin's Creed cards, because none of us were modern players. We all just wanted to kind of crack packs and see what was in the new set, but we didn't really have a very good time with it. I mean, generally, there weren't very many cohesive mechanics. There were very limited cards. There were so many, like, not reprints, but you would get a lot of the same card because there were so few cards in the set.
The set is so small.
The set is so small, and we were a pot of 4.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that because that's the through line that I want to talk about. So at this point, we kind of know that all of these sets are now going to be in standard. They're going to be something. And so just we as players are assuming, okay, well, it's all coming to standard, so it should all be draftable product, right? Because you don't release non-draftable product into standard. That's not how things work. So that leads us to the announcement that came up that I don't have a date off the top of my head for, where they said that, oh, by the way, Marvel Spider-Man is not coming to Arena. We're going to do an in-universe set that's going to go on Arena, which is called Through the Omen Path. And it's going to release alongside Marvel Spider-Man. It's going to release on the 23rd. And that's what we're going to play on Arena for those of us that play Limited on Arena.
And also Magic Online.
Yes. So your digital Magic is not going to have the Amazing Spider-Man. It's going to have the Fantastic Arachnid Person,
the Archangel or Skyrod, Basil, Cabaret Loudmouth, chosen by Valgavoth. Basically, it's an amalgamation of all the quote-unquote hat sets from the last few years kind of squished together in a set so that the in-universe characters can be more represented and they don't have to either shell out so much money to Marvel for the rights to it, or alternatively, Marvel didn't grant them the rights and wouldn't sell it to them, and so they had to come up with this kind of workaround here.
And that begs the question, because we don't know what the deal was or how it worked out. But what we do know is that from the design article about the set, when you look at that design article, Marvel Spider-Man swinging into design, if you scroll down, we see what the initial set looked like when they started designing it. So 2023 or so, when they're designing this set, it was designed to be 100 cards. It was designed to have no commons. It was designed to have, notably, no draft format and be legal in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander, with a focus on Commander. Does that sound like a certain set filled with assassins that we might have just been talking about? That sounds a lot like a Beyond Booster product.
it comes about around the same time too. That's the other thing. While we're talking about how this is all planned out 2-3 years in advance, the timelines themselves, where it's around this time that we saw the Aftermath set from March of the Machines, which was their first full foray into a full multiverse crossover mashup where all the planes kind of came together in the lore. And then they did the Aftermath set, and that bombed. That just did not sell anything because
Yep.
you couldn't draft it, you couldn't play with it. You basically just bought the cards if there were a couple that were in there that you liked.
There was like
There was
three
really
chase cards that were important. 2 or 3 chase
right
cards that were important in standard constructed
in standard.
formats.
But other than that, people just didn't want to buy the set. There was no reason to. You couldn't draft it. You couldn't play with the cards,
Yeah.
unless you were doing specifically constructed, in which case, why would you need the other cards?
Right.
So I think Wizards at that point freaked out and said, we need to do something better. We need to, be able to stand on our 2 feet here and say, this isn't going to happen again. We don't want to have this happen again. So what they started doing is they started pushing these Aftermath sets, or things that they may have released as standalone product, into the sets themselves. That's why some of the big score stuff happened. That's why a lot of these bonus sheet things where you can get 5 or 6 rares in a pack,
And they've kind of said
happened.
as much. They've kind of said as much that the big score in particular was supposed to be an Aftermath type product, and they pushed it into the set because Aftermath did so poorly.
Right.
Assassin's Creed is slightly different from the Aftermath product, but I would argue that it suffers the same problem in that it has an audience, but that audience is Assassin's Creed players. That audience is not Magic players, is what I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem that we now find ourselves in, or that Wizards found themselves in, and they possibly resolved in this way, is that they expanded the size of the set to 188 cards or so and made it a new draftable set. What's the official size we saw looking at Skyfall? Skyfall told us 100 and...
If we're looking at the whole set, not including special guest cards, it looks like it's 193.
Yeah, and then special guest cards and things of that nature.
I think there's like 25.
Yeah, but this also leads us
just
to
over 200.
Yeah, so say there's 200 cards, not 200 draftable cards, quote unquote. But how do you draft a set that's so small? Like, if you sit down 8 players at this and you've got commons and uncommons, everybody's going to end up with like 4 or 5 of the same common, 3s of the same uncommons, etc. Because it's such a small set. There's not a lot of variety. Tinfoil hats for a moment, Gavin. Perfect for a hat set theme. I gotta start having my tinfoil hat more handy when we talk about some of these sets. I kind of feel like the only reason we're talking about pick 2 today is that it's a solution to a problem that was self-inflicted. Like, Spider-Man was not meant to be a set put into standard. We see that from the design notes from the designer, that it wasn't meant to be a standard set. And either because of deals or because it was too late in the design process or whatever the case may be, they weren't able to expand it into a full draft set. Or maybe we'd have 200 Spider people instead of the 40-something that we have in this set if they did have to expand it that large. I can't say. I am going to draft this set. I am going to play this set. There's several RCQs coming up locally that are going to have this set as the sealed format. But I love Magic. It is my favorite game of all time. And I've never been so underwhelmed and so unexcited for a set or for a format. And I can't tell you. I don't think ever. I'm an old Magic boomer, Gavin. I remember Fallen Empires. I lived through it. I remember Homelands. I lived through it. I thought both of those sets did more for the health of Magic in a positive way than Spider-Man is doing by being visually and completely distinct between paper and digital and not having a connection. Being a small set, forcing this new format. Maybe the format's fun. I don't know yet. I'm going to definitely draft it, and I'll have a different opinion of that possibly going forward. But my soapbox hot take is that if Wizards didn't have everything locked in to have this set be compatible in paper and in digital and everything locked up properly, we shouldn't see this set in standard. Like maybe Spider-Man just shouldn't have existed, or it should have been delayed in favor of Avatar and Lorwyn, which everyone seems to be hyped about Lorwyn and Avatar.
I think a delay would be preferable to what we're getting here. So I agree with the majority of your points. I know that I love Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and this should be a triumph similar to what we're seeing with Final Fantasy,
Which
where
was
you could
great.
tell that there was love, care, and attention to the IP, the material. All the characters are well represented. All of the ideas are fully fleshed out. The draft format is very good. The stylization is very good. It brings in new people to experience this and, kind of helps them along because their favorite characters are in there. And I just don't think Spider-Man is going to hit those same highs, mostly because, again, I think that this was a little bit rushed. And that's weird to say because they're planning this 2 years in advance. But as we saw with the announcement that all these sets, Universes Beyond and other ones, are going to be standard legal, I think they thought that they were going to be making things easier by doing this. And they, in fact, actually made it harder because they're kind of putting a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah,
The amount of
that's a
design,
great analogy.
well, the amount of design chops, and they used the term in their article about this, their design reps, that they've had decades of design reps so that they'll be able to make sure that there isn't power creep or make sure there isn't as much, differentiation between some of these sets in terms of like having an absurdly powerful Nadu level mistake, like from like Modern Horizons 3, or, the One Ring is a completely busted card in every format that it's in now. I'm not saying that that's a design mistake necessarily, but they're designed for different games. Like Lord of the Rings was designed to be powerful, but it was never designed to be in limited. If Lord of the Rings was in limited, can you imagine the chaos that would go everywhere if Orcish Bowmasters
you mean in standard? We
in
drafted the
standard,
heck out of
excuse me.
we drafted the heck out of Lord of the Rings. It's one of the few sets that I have 100% on Arena
When I
for that reason.
say like drafting, yes, it was meant to be drafted, but I mean in standard. If it went into standard instead of going into modern,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
there are
that was
just
when
some
they did it
cards that are
direct to
too
modern.
powerful. They're just too powerful for this standard format. And so if you take that, if you unleash your designers and you say, go and create cool, powerful cards for a format and then try and scale it back, you're going to get a lot of resistance. And then the other thing too is some of these cards that are coming out here that feel a little bit lackadaisical in terms of both storytelling and also just kind of like, I don't know, I guess it's an ick factor. Like there's a hot dog cart.
I
Like
see,
there's like a hot dog cart as one of the cards, and
Gavin,
there's City
I'm gonna
Pigeon
push
and
back on that. The hot dog cart and the city pigeon, that's New York, baby.
what about the
I'm
Schmear?
here for that. Why do we need the 44th or 43rd spider person? Like,
That's true.
what connection
Yeah,
does Spider UK have to any of the big story arcs that the average fan is going to know and
yeah,
recognize? I'm sorry
that's
I'm
true.
insulting a Spider-Man super fan who's going to come at us in the comments and be like, "Oh, Spider UK is in this story arc and they're great," and whatever. The average Spider-Man appreciator is not going to know or care. And so there's no
Yeah,
like lore connection power in that card. That card could have just been another generic something and no one would be the wiser. And that's where I'm kind of on the same page as you, is that the power and the passion doesn't feel there from me as a fan. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm not a Spider-Man fan the way I'm not a Final Fantasy fan. Like, the IPs mean nothing to me, but they're Magic sets and I'm a Magic player and I'm a limited player, and so I want to draft and play these sets and play these formats. But I just don't feel the love coming out of this set the way I felt it with Final Fantasy, you know?
yeah. The other thing too is, well, the fact that it's a different set altogether through the Omen paths. It's different card names, even web slinging, which is referenced here. I guess they couldn't get the rights to the term web slinging or something, because in the Omen Paths one, it's called en web. So, it just feels very disjointed. It feels like two different IPs entirely, which it is, but it just feels like there could have been a little bit more time given to both of these projects and maybe let it incubate a little bit longer and on it a little bit more and ponder and maybe come up with a better storyline. I don't know.
Or Gavin,
There's just something missing.
I would argue if even way back when the deal was made, if Wizards knew they were not going to be able to put these cards in digital, they should have just said, no, we don't want to do that. And they should have just waited, because maybe Marvel Snap is not going to be around forever. Maybe some of these other digital Marvel card games are not going to be around forever. Maybe there would be a better time for them to get a license
or
to
maybe
do it.
make a deal.
I don't know.
Or maybe make a deal. Money always talks.
We're entirely theory crafting here. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what actually happened behind closed doors.
They just did 200 million from Final Fantasy. It's not like they can just, not find the money in the couch cushions. I think that there is probably, when they were negotiating this deal, Marvel was probably in a different place and Magic was in a different place. Maybe the idea of Universes Beyond wasn't completely a proven concept yet, and so they felt like they couldn't negotiate to get the digital rights as well, and they just had
I don't know, because you're already talking Lord of the Rings success time. I think it's more that whatever happened, the stars didn't align properly, and as far as we can tell from the outside, because like I said, we don't know the facts, we don't know what went on behind closed doors. But from my perspective as a fan, it's a disservice to Magic to start us down this path of having cards that are distinct in paper versus digital and being different. Like Dark Confidant should be Dark Confidant in whatever set, format, etc. that he lives in, whether it's digital, paper, a reprint into Final Fantasy as a different character separate from the invitational card from 20 years ago. Shout out Bob. But
honestly,
yeah, I want to leave this alone now because I don't want to keep harping on it too much. But part of me is sad and part of me is disappointed and feels like this set is going to be something that down the road people are going to talk about as the first step of Magic going wrong, potentially. And I don't want that because I love this game. I think all the designers who work on Magic are brilliant folks. They do amazing work. I've loved playing Limited the last couple years, more so than I have at any point in the past. It's just been, we've had such a good run of Limited in recent years, and I want to see that continue, and I just don't feel like this is the next stepping stone to that.
Well, the other thing, too, is we have Avatar coming up after this, which is another Universes Beyond. I think Magic might be trying to take a lot of like this set hasn't even come out yet. But if there's one thing that Magic can kind of get behind is they do kind of own their mistakes often. When they have made a mistake card or they didn't sell a lot because of, the aftermath, they'll make a change, if the dollars and cents are there. My take on this though is that Spider-Man is going to sell a lot. I mean, it's already extremely popular. I'm seeing the prices online. Some of the collector boosters are outrageously expensive. Because it's a very popular IP, it almost doesn't matter that the set itself doesn't play very well because it's just going to sell regardless. If Aftermath was a Universes Beyond set instead of a in-universe set, I think it probably would have sold well even if you couldn't limited draft it.
But do we want that to be the be-all, end-all of what Magic is?
That's the question.
I get that money talks and BS walks, but I want to play a good game of Magic, and I don't want the game itself to suffer for the sake of short-term financials. You know what I mean? Magic's been a game now for 30 years, over 30 years. I want to see it lasting another 30 years, and if it's going to do that, it can't be Magic as a game can't be beholden to quarterly numbers and annual numbers and etc. It needs to have a bigger, longer term picture for the health of the game, I would argue.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's absolutely true, that having a long-term vision is what is going to keep the game healthy. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who play limited. I've talked to a lot of people who've played standard, and there is fatigue, there is burnout on some of these sets, how rapidly they come out. We were joking about it earlier this year, that this year was going to be a rapid fire kind of year where we're just going from one set to another. I feel like you blink and you miss it. Final Fantasy was over in the blink of an eye. Feels like Edge of Eternities has stretched on a little bit longer than Past is Welcome. For me personally, I know you love the set, Paul, but
I'm still blasting off into the warp. I'm
it's funny because
enjoying EOE considerably.
when we did the preview, I thought I was going to be the one that just absolutely adored the set and couldn't get enough of it. And you were a bit wary of it, so it's pretty nice to see the reversal of that a little bit.
Yeah.
In that you've just absolutely fallen in love with it, and I do like the set too. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's definitely a very good set. I just don't think it's going to be up there with the top echelons the way that you think it is. So thanks so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, if you think that this Universes Beyond stuff is just the bee's knees, tell us. We don't want to yuck your yum. Like, honestly, if you enjoy Spider-Man, if this is the greatest thing that's ever happened because your favorite game Magic and your favorite, web slinger Spidey and your favorite movie is Across the Spider-Verse, let us know. Let us know. Because again, we want everybody to enjoy the game. We don't want Magic to be bad because we love it. Any other thoughts, Paul?
I would say get at us. Tell us your takes. We want to hear your hot takes on Spider-Man. We want to hear your hot takes on Universes Beyond. We want to hear your hot takes on Limited. We're on at Pick One Pack One Pod on all of the things. You can get us there on Gmail also if you want to email us. Tell us what your takes are. Maybe I'm just the old man yelling at the cloud. I'll shake my fist for y'all right now. But at the end of the day, Gavin, I love Magic. I want always what's best for Magic. I may worry sometimes, but I have high hopes.
Yeah. And with that, we're just going to move to the end step, pass the turn. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.
We'll swing out of here. Bye.